very glad to have Chris and Aaron here with us to talk about some of the work, the great work that they've been doing throughout the Pacific and some plans for the future. In particular, the thing that I like is that this is taking some of the strategy stuff that the Pacific have said that they want, and it's actually implementing it. And that's what I'm really pleased to see. We often miss that gap in between of that middle layer who can take the strategy and do the implementation. So I think they've got some great ideas on how we can do that throughout the Pacific region. So without further ado, over to you. Thank you very much, Chris and Aaron.
Okay, Richard's the teacher's pet. We're the class clowns.
Yeah.
So this is the least technical presentation you will see today, but hopefully you'll find some interesting things in it. So Aaron and I have not rehearsed this. We're going to be doing different slides, so just roll with it if it's not quite as smooth as it might be. So just to introduce ourselves, as you've heard from me a few times over the last few days, my official job title is a professional fellow in surveying, which just means that I had a real job before I became an academic. And to reflect on my smiley face and my sad face from Monday, I have lots of students that I need to keep busy. Fits the criteria for both of them, which I'll share a bit more about in a sec. I teach a lot of different things, but the Geodesy courses that I'm involved with are possibly my favourite and definitely my background before I ended up as an academic.
Go ahead.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I'm Aaron, and I'm a cadastral and consulting surveyor. I'm pretty lucky to be coming on the coattails of Chris here, who's dragging me along. But thank you. I describe myself as a bit of a geodesy hack or heathen. Maybe that's too far, but I'm learning a lot this week, and really appreciative for everyone teaching me at the same time. I think one of the things that we'll learn in capacity building is that we gain as much as we give a lot of the time. So if you're reaching out for capacity building, don't think that it's a one-way street, because people will be getting things from you as well. I'm sort of involved through. I've done a bit of capacity building throughout the Pacific mostly, and yeah, hopefully I'll be able to add a bit of support in different aspects to this.
He definitely will. I call him the capacity building OG because he's been doing it longer than I even knew it was a thing. Oh, yeah, maybe you do it. I can't hold my face right and make it work. You think for a lecture I'd be able to get the technology right, but here we are. So just for a bit of context about my university, by no means the only university in Australia that teaches surveying. However, we probably produce the most students out of all of them, around 80% as far as I can tell at the moment. Of those students, 80% of them started exclusively online. They do come for a handful of residential schools, but 95% of their studies are done in an online environment. We have students from all over Australia as well as overseas. We've had students from everywhere from Brazil to Singapore and places in between. The average age of our first year students is actually 28. So everyone most of us probably in this room have the experience of going to university straight out of school. That's definitely not the case for my cohort. And we get a lot of people career changing. So I've got a lot of carpenters at the moment who've described surveying as being carpentry with better lasers. So this year was our biggest intake since I've joined the university at 240 first year students. So you can imagine what it's like trying to teach first year surveying to 240 people. It's a bit of a challenge sometimes, but good fun. Within our program, which is the next slide, we actually have 4 separate qualifications, and they're all kind of nested within each other. So you can do a thing called an undergraduate certificate, which the Australian government introduced during COVID, which is just like a short course type thing where you do 6 months and 4 courses. An associate degree, which is a 2-year thing, which is where about 50% of our students start at, and then you can move through to the bachelor's. And for the project we're going to be talking about today, we're talking about those bachelor's with honours students. I just wanted to show this photo because a lot of people in this room come from very, very warm places. I teach a control network residential school in Toowoomba, which is on the top of the Great Dividing Range in Queensland, which is a very different climate to where I live in Brisbane. And I've had everything for residential schools from sleet to this kind of fog, where we were meant to be doing traversing with a total station, which clearly wasn't going to happen. So, you know, control networks don't care about the weather. We teach in all sorts of weather because our students come from far and wide for these residential schools. Okay, it's not just me. All right, I just wanted to give a bit of background about how we got involved in Kiribati, because I think it speaks really well to some of the stuff we've discussed yesterday, particularly in Ryan's presentation about capacity building. So I didn't even know where Kiribati was about 12 months ago. I didn't even know it existed, and I definitely didn't know how to pronounce it. And I got involved because a graduate of mine rang me and said, hey, my old boss who's volunteering in Kiribati is having some problems with their CAD software. Do you think you could help him out? So a 10-minute WhatsApp phone call got them sorted, and then that has kind of snowballed into a much bigger conversation about, well, what else could we do to help? And then I phoned a friend, Aaron, in this case, and said, hey, you do a lot of work in the Pacific. What could I get my students to do to help out here? And also to keep them busy, because 40 to 60 honours projects for undergrad students in surveying and geodesy is a lot every year. So I need to keep them occupied.
So that led us to a bit of an adventure to Kiribati adventure number 1, we're calling it. And if you can close your eyes and imagine me with a slightly different voice and with longer hair, Chris has an honours student who's working on a project, working on an honours project. Her name's Hannah Watson, and we need to give her a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, can everyone, I'm going to record this towards the end. It's actually Hannah's birthday today, and this project wouldn't have gone ahead without her. So if it's all right, I'm going to be a bit cheeky and get everyone to say happy birthday to her.
Sounds good. So her honours project is looking at building a framework that can help people determine where they're at in their geodetic supply chain to prepare for modern datums and capacity building. Now, you might kind of see a bit of a theme that's happening here. There's some similarities with what's going on this week, and Hannah's research has come across this and is looking to build on it in the Pacific capacity. So during this adventure, we spoke to, we have everyone in bold and everyone we could, but there's obviously some challenges with that. We sought to engage with anyone who had an interest in geodesy, and as you've found this week, that's a very broad range of people. So we'll say that's first phase of speaking to everyone we could and talking to them and communicating with them about how an improved datum and coordinate system could assist their work. As part of that adventure, which Chris is going to talk about soon, is preparing for a new Colombo trip, which is coming up later this year. So Hannah's research into Kiribati, and I would say using Kiribati as a test case for a broader implementation in the Pacific, is looking into the historic systems of Kiribati, and from that she found that Kiribati has a really interesting and unique approach to datums and coordinate systems, which goes back many, many years. And out of they have 3 different island groups, 32 atolls and 1 island. Each have their own individual datum based on some relatively old spheroids and astrodatums. She's also looked into the opportunity to develop resources and capacity building for surveyors, and really delving into the understanding the opportunity for a new united datum and coordinate system that allows multiple uses. So one key aspect of this, and this kind of feeds into capacity building that we'll talk about a little later, is that the need for this has been identified by Kiribati government. So it's coming from the ground up, and that's quite important when it comes to capacity building, to ensure that the help and the need is going to the right places. Just looking at aligning the coordinate system to the international GNSS systems and to support the global geodesy supply chain. Interestingly, Kiribati has one of the largest exclusive economic zones, and it's the only country that straddles all 4 hemispheres, so north, south, and east and west. And the other importance of that is it has immediate impacts as well as longer term plans for that entire supply system. It's going to work one time. Maybe it won't.
So towards the end of last year, with the support of an Australian volunteer surveyor who was living in Kiribati at the time, as well as the Land Management Division, they encouraged me to put in for what's called a New Colombo Mobility Project grant in Australia, which is funded by DFAT. So I had never visited Kiribati at this point in time, but I was applying to take a bunch of students and go and live there for 3 months. And I was very fortunate to find out on the 20th of December, on my last teaching day for the year, that I'd been successful in achieving that funding. And so fast forward to this moment in time, we're about 52 days, I think, away before our departure. So part of that trip, as Aaron has mentioned, is following on from some of Hannah's work. But the really cool thing that I'll explain in a second with the student work is that all of it is very nicely wrapped in a warm, cozy blanket of all of the work that we're doing here this week and has been done by GGCE. So it's dovetailed quite accidentally, but very nicely. Next slide, please. Okay, just before we go on, I just want to get, one of the things that I find really challenging in dealing with students from a lot of different places is the language that we use to describe geodesy and surveying. So I want to do a quick run around and find out what everyone's slang word for a total station in your country is. Pardon? TS?
Yes.
Well, that's very proper. We call it a jigger in Australia, which, as far as I can tell, a jigger is like a measure of something, mostly rum in my experience. But what about other people?
For the French, I think they call it tachyometer.
Yeah.
Yeah. They went to the office and they called it tachyometer. And we said, it's a total station.
Again, that's very proper. I'm sure there's some slang ones out there.
They call it a gun.
In America, they call it a gun. That is correct.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Any others?
Wow.
Romano, what about in Kiribati? What do you call it? TS?
TS.
I've also heard your surveys call it a sniper. So, yeah. Yeah. So that's just an indication of sometimes the challenge that I'm faced with when I'm trying to teach, is that the way we describe things can vary very, very much between different countries. Yeah. So what will these students be doing? So at this stage, I'm taking 7 students this year and probably another 7 next year. What they'll be working on while they're there is actually the beginning of their honours project. So they do that over a year. But apart from the amazing Romano, a lot of the surveyors in LMD in Kiribati don't have their university qualifications. So part of the job of the students is to help mentor and support the LMD surveyors, not just in their day-to-day work, but also in developing study habits and understanding how to learn. So I'll be teaching a little bit of, GPS and basic surveying stuff in terms of the science while I'm there. So hopefully that will be a nice kind of capacity build for the students as well as for the LMD surveyors. And like I just said, understanding the local language of what we call things as well. So this will be adventure number 2, and this is a photo of the 4 of us with the Minister for MILAD at our first visit. So hang on, here we go. So like I said, in about 50 odd days, we're leaving for 12 weeks. 7 students and 1 Chris. So I'm about to have 7 student survey children, as well as one of my own that's coming as well. And we'll be embedded in the Land Management Division day to day. So we'll be working with them on the work that they do on a day-to-day basis, as well as some of the project work, like the strategic project work that we're currently working with Romano, SPC and PGSC on identifying some of the key things that we can achieve while they're there. And this is Baisua, who unfortunately couldn't make it. He was planning to come. He's the senior surveyor at LMD. Some of the projects the students are planning on working on are listed up here. Aaron will talk a bit about capacity building, not just with the Pacific, but also with our colleagues in Australia as well and their understanding of the Pacific. So these are a handful of the projects that have been suggested so far, but I am more than happy to take suggestions for others, because I've been told that maybe there isn't enough research work to be done in Kiribati to take 7 students. So I'm more than receptive to any and all ideas for people for things that they think are valuable.
It's me. Thanks, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, there's support for this from a range of different partners, including Geoscience Australia, have been very generous with their time. The Department of Resources Queensland, as well as Spatial Sciences New South Wales, and other experts across Australia, New Zealand, and across the globe. I feel like Chris has used a fair bit of her, called in a lot of the favours that she's given.
I've called in a lot of early morning, Nick, late night Chris meeting favours along the way, yeah.
And as part of that, we've been building partnerships to assist in geodetic capabilities. Clearly, I think we've learned this week that lots of people have different key knowledge, and we want to leverage that from different areas. We don't expect everyone to know everything about everything. And that's going to be involved in some processing of data, the private sector support, and other government services. So it's not just capacity building to our counterparts in Kiribati or other countries where we're working. I think really appreciate Ryan's presentation yesterday on opportunities for interaction with agencies around the world. And it was really impressive because it showed how many agencies are out there and willing to assist, but it's not always that easy for us to interact with them. Just having the confidence in some cases to reach out, especially if you're not quite sure what you're seeking, can be really daunting and challenging. And so as part of what Chris and us, what we're doing through this, we're also building some of the capacity in those agencies like DFAT and also students. So it's both ways so they can more easily interact with those with our partners throughout the Pacific.
Yeah, I think as you'll see on the next slide, there's 4 separate pieces to this work that DFAT are funding each of them entirely separately, which is not very efficient. So in terms of our storytelling, we wanted to present this as a story because that's, what we're all about here. Like we said, the next chapter is yet to be written. Some of this we're just making up as we go along, as sometimes good capacity building, how that works. So we're looking to kind of make this as big as impressive as we can, but also hopefully build some longer term projects so that 1, I can keep students busy, but 2, we can all grow in the geodesy space.
Yeah. So as Chris mentioned, navigating the funding systems can be challenging, and you can see here that we have a range of different interactions with DFAT in different departments. The New Colombo Plan, which is federally funded, the Australian Volunteers International, which is the volunteer organisation within the Australian government, also applying for education scholarships, and aid projects are also managed by DFAT. So there's many different opportunities to interact with different agencies, different ways of getting support, and it can be quite daunting and challenging to even be aware of or to interact with those different opportunities. So we kind of would love to see a better approach to ensure efficient capacity building and also to be able to share that more broadly with people who can access it. So just some of the opportunities that do exist. Currently, as you've seen, Chris is taking some university students to countries, so to Kiribati in this case, and looking to expand that into the future also. They do require a letter of support from the in-country department, so that's really to show that the interaction is there, the interest is there, and that we're not just going to turn up and say what we think and no one know that we're there or it not be useful. Opportunities exist. Australia has quite a broad, and so does New Zealand, have quite a broad volunteer program, and they sometimes don't struggle, but they are always interested in placing volunteers, and these are like expert volunteers with experience, into organizations that need support and want support. So it's actually possible to reach out to them directly and say, hey, we're looking for this type of support. and that can be a really good way to get some great experience in your organization to help you out. And through this process, we're kind of hearing more and more of a number of retired gurus, we'll call them, and also mid-career professionals who are like really keen to assist. Retired more so that maybe they're a bit bored or want to get out of the house, but yeah,
Like maybe their partner's like, go back to work a little bit, go and be useful in the world.
Possibly, and that can be delivered either in country for short or long term, and also virtual, just ad hoc support. But that's supported by the Australian and New Zealand governments as well. So there can be some really good benefits to organisations through that. There's been a bit promoted this week around connection through UN-GGCE, and that's really positive. We've talked about SPC, and Andrik is here, and we're equally excited about his new role, which is more of a collaboration role, I think, and the ability to, I'm not going to call it a one-stop shop, Andrik, but yeah, no, like just a collaborative role that enables people to be able to interact directly and find links to ways that support can be provided. There is, I find that there's often a disconnect between, sometimes there's a disconnect between people seeking direct support, kind of on the ground support, and then the big, I call it hairy audacious support from a distance, which can be a bit challenging or scary to interact with. So I'm looking forward to Andrik's involvement there. And also one thing I think that is really important is kind of industry opportunities and taking those where they become available. So I'm lucky to do quite a bit of consulting and contracting work in countries, and that involves a little bit of travel, which I really enjoy. And as part of that, I always, or I try to always reach out to the local survey department. It's a bit easier with survey, but than geodesy specifically, because it's a bit more visible. You're standing on the side of the road, and so people can come up and say hi, or I can go in and annoy the surveyors for a day and see if they need anything or want any help. But I really encourage anyone I work with to just go and say hi to. There's lots of, especially infrastructure partners in the Pacific, who are there for long-term or even short-term projects, and there's really good opportunities to encourage and start to expect from them to leave a bit more behind than the specific infrastructure they're building. And so I think that's a really good opportunity for, I guess, direct support and direct learning opportunities while they're in country.
Just to reflect on the asking for help, I wanted to show this. So my very patient and much smarter than me geodetic surveyor husband, Darren, and I will occasionally come home on a Friday night with something that's been bugging us at work. And in this case, this was a Friday night, bit of a brain dump on how do you pull together multiple GNSS observations over multiple islands. In this case, we're talking about Kiribati. And, pull them together in some way to come up with some kind of temporary datum until you can come up with something better. So this was a bit of I must admit there was a bottle of wine or two involved in this, and a Friday night with our kids probably being a bit more feral than they should have been in the background. But it's these kinds of random bits of support that often provide really unique and beneficial pieces of capacity building. So don't be afraid to kind of reach out to people and I think this group here, like the alumni name, is a really great thing because we are now all connected in ways that we can reach out to each other and ask for support in areas that are not our strong suit. So so into the future, what does this look like from here? Apart from packing my bags to go and live in Kiribati for 12 weeks very soon, My main aim in this space is obviously to keep my students busy and doing meaningful work. It's very easy when you have a lot of students who need honours projects to do things that are not as impactful as they could be. If I have to supervise one more tilt pole project, I may actually stab myself with a tilt pole. So there's a really big opportunity for engagement with groups, not just at our university, but other universities that do this kind of work as well, to get students doing meaningful work. I'm also very keen on assisting with capacity building wherever we're asked. So in our case, it was being reached, someone reached out to us just to help with software, and it grew from there. So have the conversations, like I said, not just with me and my university, but people like Richard are a wealth of knowledge and have access to incredible resources as well. And there's a number of universities in your own regions and home countries that can do that as well. I think recognising that small things sometimes can have big impacts. We often, outside of GNSS, we live in a world of kind of robotic equipment, so people can be sent out on their own, and sometimes we forget to transfer that knowledge of how to do the basic things that enable better things to happen. So just in closing, because we're actually on time, which never happens for me. I'm always off on a tangent being a lecturer. The two things that I would just like to kind of close with are that universities have a much, much, much bigger role to play in capacity building just beyond formal education qualifications. So, and outside of research as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to engage with universities in different and interesting ways that sometimes are easier to engage with universities than other organisations. So I encourage everyone to seek out your university contacts and, ask them about what they can do to assist you once you've finished your delightful plan, of course, or even if you need help with your plan. So, like I said, we're here to offer help and support. Like, I'm in a fairly unique position in Australia where I have a lot of students that I need to keep occupied, but I also have a lot of students that are really incredible in that they have a whole other lives before they came into the surveying and geodesy space, and they want to help. So about 6 of them have messaged me today asking how things are going, and so I've already signed them all up to help with anyone who needs a hand with their fact book. They're gonna, I'm happy to pair you up with one of them, and they're willing to support that work as well. So, this is just the beginning of our capacity building journey, or geodesy journey, as I like to call it, if you like. So if any of or all of that is of interest to you, please feel free to reach out to Aaron or I. And thank you to Nick and the whole team that got us here to talk to you about this today. We really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. I'm never on time. This is like a miracle.
Now when we say happy birthday to Hannah?
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to film it. I know this will come out in the recording, but I want to send it to her today.
Okay.
So what we'll do, the usual bad Chris selfie version. My students are very familiar with this. So if everyone could just say, happy birthday, Hannah, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Hannah! Thank you, everybody.
Oh, I hope Charisma was doing this. Yeah, lovely. That's great. Put your hand up if you'd like 7 students to come and help you in your country. No one? Fiji, FSM, yeah, Sri Lanka. Oh. Jack, put your hand down, Jack.
He's going with them next time.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have a lot of takers. Thanks for that great presentation. This is a wonderful scenario, pairs together. It's a win-win, right? It's win for the students and it's win for the countries as well. So I think that's a great story. I'm happy to take 1 or 2 quick questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Chris. I have a question. You look at most of the Pacific Island countries, there's a lot of data collected in terms of geodetic data. So how the university can use this data by using the students to access those data and come up with a project for each countries, like how they can build a model, geode model, or define a reference system for each country using those data, and prepare it as like a a thesis and come and present it in the international regional forum to prove their finding, or how the university can collaborate with the countries to see potential student who can come into the university, use those data, analyze those data, and provide submit a thesis paper to show their finding out of those out of that research. I think because there's a lot of data has been collected from each countries, but how can we better use that data for students to access, where they can use that as their thesis and come up with their finding? Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's two parts to an answer for that. And I think the first one is having the students sit with people and help them complete that fact book and get the history of what it is that countries have been doing to try and progress their their geospatial systems and geodesy environment, because it's it's in your head, right? You know all of how things have come about in your country, or if you don't have all the history, you know who to kind of ask, and we don't have that from an outside perspective. So I think having students come and help and understand that process, and then we can pull those together, like from a SPC PGSC perspective, we can take those ones from the Pacific, for example, and this is obviously for the Pacific, it would work in other regions as well. And then we can sit down and come up with a strategic plan about the best way to kind of use the students to go out and help with the capacity building, and also the volunteers as well, because there are a lot of people, a lot of graduates, like Aaron said, a lot of semi-retired or retired people that are willing to come out and help with things like big static campaigns and things like that. And I think the other part is the capacity building around education in country. So if not all of your people have their university qualifications, getting them involved in that process and having them be the storyteller of your country, I think is a really, really important thing, because there's no more powerful voice for your country than someone in your country telling that story that needs to be told.
All right, thank you. We're going to move along to our country reports. Thank you very much, Chris and Aaron.